Boeing 777 cargo aircraft approaching a runway, appearing to be moments away from an ordinary landing, when suddenly the entire aircraft seems to lose its smooth rhythm and the touchdown turns into a frightening sequence of bouncing, rolling, and rapid corrections. That is exactly what makes the Ethiopian cargo landing footage so dramatic. The incident took place on April 11, 2021 at Miami International Airport in Florida, involving Ethiopian cargo flight 3509, a Boeing 777 freighter arriving from Santiago de Chile. The aircraft had already completed the long journey toward Miami, and the final stage should have been the simplest part of the flight, but instead the landing became the most intense moment of the entire operation. As the aircraft descended toward the runway, the approach initially looked routine. The massive freighter was lined up for landing and continued toward the runway at a controlled descent. From a distance, there was little indication of what was about to happen. Then the aircraft reached the runway and made contact with the surface. The touchdown appeared extremely hard, and instead of immediately settling into a smooth ground roll, the aircraft bounced. The movement was sudden and dramatic. The body of the aircraft shifted, the wings moved, and the aircraft appeared to roll as it continued along the runway. For people watching the footage, this was the moment when a routine landing suddenly became a serious aviation situation. A large aircraft traveling at landing speed cannot simply stop instantly, and when its movement becomes unstable close to the ground, every second matters. The flight crew must maintain directional control while the aircraft's weight transfers from the wings to the landing gear. At the same time, the aircraft must remain within the runway boundaries and begin reducing speed. In this case, the aircraft appeared to move significantly after touchdown, but the crew managed to stabilize the aircraft and keep it on the runway. That successful recovery is what makes the footage so remarkable. The incident is not simply a story about a hard landing. It is also a story about how pilots respond when a landing does not develop exactly as expected. To understand why the footage looks so dramatic, it is important to understand what happens during a normal landing. As an aircraft approaches a runway, pilots carefully control altitude, speed, descent rate, and alignment. The aircraft must reach the runway within specific operating parameters. During the final seconds, the pilots perform what is known as the flare, gradually changing the aircraft's attitude so that the main landing gear touches the runway in a controlled manner. Ideally, the aircraft settles smoothly onto the surface and begins rolling forward. But many factors can affect that process. Wind is one of the most important. Aircraft rarely land in perfectly calm conditions, and pilots routinely deal with headwinds, tailwinds, and crosswinds. A crosswind is particularly relevant because it comes from the side of the runway and can push the aircraft away from its desired path. Pilots must compensate for that sideways force and maintain alignment. If the aircraft reaches the runway with an unfavorable attitude or alignment, the touchdown can become harder than expected. Reports surrounding this incident discuss challenging wind conditions, but the exact cause of the landing should not be determined from the video alone. A short recording cannot reveal every variable that was present in the cockpit. We cannot see the aircraft's exact airspeed, weight, control inputs, wind measurements, or communication between the pilots and air traffic control. That is why responsible aviation reporting separates confirmed facts from assumptions. What the footage clearly shows is a Boeing 777 freighter making a hard touchdown, bouncing and experiencing significant rolling movement before the crew brings the aircraft back under control. The aircraft remained on the runway, which is a critical part of the outcome. If the aircraft had continued moving toward the edge, the event could potentially have developed into a runway excursion. A runway excursion occurs when an aircraft leaves the designated runway surface during takeoff or landing. Such events can be extremely serious because a large aircraft moving at high speed can suffer substantial damage when it reaches uneven ground or obstacles beyond the paved surface. In this case, that outcome was avoided. The pilots maintained control long enough for the aircraft to remain within the runway environment and continue its landing roll. This is where the importance of training becomes clear. Airline pilots do not simply learn how to fly an aircraft under perfect conditions. They train for abnormal situations, changing weather, difficult approaches, and unexpected aircraft
Air
movements.
traffic control, you're clear
Modern
to take
flight
off.
simulators can reproduce challenging scenarios that would be unsafe to practice in a real air. Crews can experience crosswind landings, rejected takeoffs, engine failures, unstable approaches, bounced landings, and other situations. Repeated exposure to these scenarios helps pilots develop the ability to respond quickly when something unexpected occurs during an actual flight. In a real aircraft, there is no opportunity to pause and analyze the situation. The runway continues to pass underneath the aircraft, and the available time decreases every second. The crew must recognize what is happening, maintain control, and decide on the safest response almost immediately. The Ethiopian cargo landing demonstrates how quickly that process can unfold. The aircraft touches down, bounces, and begins to roll, and then the crew works to bring it back into a stable position. To a viewer, the movement may appear chaotic, but the pilots are working with control inputs, instruments, and procedures that are not visible from the ground. The aircraft itself is also designed with considerable structural strength. A Boeing 777 is built to operate under demanding conditions, and its landing gear is designed to absorb the forces associated with normal touchdowns. However, an unusually hard landing can still create loads that require inspection. After an event of this nature, maintenance personnel may examine the landing gear, wheels, tires, and structural components to determine whether any part of the aircraft requires attention. This does not mean that serious damage necessarily occurred. It means aviation safety procedures require unusual events to be assessed carefully. The aircraft cannot simply be assumed to be unaffected. Engineers use inspection procedures to make sure the aircraft remains airworthy before it returns to normal operations. This is one of the many layers of safety built into commercial aviation. Another important aspect of this incident is the difference between an accident and an incident. Social media users often describe any frightening aircraft footage as a crash or near crash, but aviation terminology is more precise. A hard landing can be an incident without becoming an accident. An aircraft can experience a significant abnormal event and still complete the landing safely. In this case, the Boeing 777 remained on the runway and the crew regained control. Therefore, describing the footage accurately is more useful than using sensational language. The video is frightening enough without exaggerating what happened. The date also matters because the footage may be reposted years after the original event. April 11, 2021 is the date associated with this landing at Miami International Airport. The aircraft was Ethiopian Cargo Flight 3509, operating a Boeing 777 freighter from Santiago de Chile to Miami. When viewers encounter the clip online today, they may not realize that it is several years old. Old aviation footage is frequently reposted because dramatic incidents remain interesting long after they happen. Some uploads may remove the original context, add new narration, or use attention-grabbing titles. That can create confusion about when and where an event actually occurred. For this reason, including the original date, airport and flight information makes the story more reliable. The exact second when the dramatic landing occurs can vary depending on the version of the video being watched. Some uploads begin with the aircraft already on approach, while others include introductions or additional footage. Without identifying one specific video file, it would be misleading to claim an exact timestamp. The important sequence occurs during the final approach and immediately after touchdown. The aircraft contacts the runway, bounces, rolls, and then stabilizes. Those few seconds are the central part of the footage. Looking closely at the aircraft's movement also shows why large aircraft require careful control. When a heavy aircraft changes direction at high speed, its momentum resists sudden changes. The pilots cannot simply make a huge correction without considering the aircraft's response. Control inputs have to be precise. The aircraft's nose direction, wheel alignment, and aerodynamic forces all interact during the landing roll. As speed decreases, the balance of those forces changes as well. The crew must continuously adapt. The runway is also an important part of the equation. Its length, width, surface condition, and available stopping distance all influence landing safety. Pilots calculate landing performance before arrival and consider factors such as aircraft weight, temperature, wind, and runway conditions. A heavy aircraft generally requires more stopping distance than a lighter aircraft, although many variables affect the actual result. Once the aircraft is on the ground, spoilers can reduce lift and transfer more weight onto the wheels, while braking systems help reduce speed. Depending on the aircraft and circumstances, reverse thrust can also contribute to deceleration. The precise systems
used during this particular landing cannot be established from the external video alone. What matters visually is that the aircraft continues along the runway and eventually becomes stable. The flight crew's workload during those moments would have been extremely high. One pilot may be primarily focused on maintaining the aircraft's path while the other monitors instruments, communications, and procedures. Modern airline operations rely heavily on crew coordination. Pilots communicate continuously, cross-check information, and divide responsibilities. This teamwork becomes especially important when an abnormal event occurs because a second set of eyes can help identify problems and confirm actions. Air traffic control also plays a role in the broader environment by managing runway operations and other aircraft around the airport. Ground crews may be prepared to respond if an aircraft reports a problem after landing. Aviation safety is therefore not dependent on one person or one piece of equipment. It is a system made up of many layers. The Ethiopian cargo incident provides an example of how those layers can help prevent a difficult situation from becoming something much worse. It is also worth considering what the passengers and crew would have experienced inside the aircraft. A large cargo aircraft does not carry passengers in the same configuration as a typical passenger airline, but the flight crew would certainly have felt the hard touchdown and subsequent movement. From inside the cockpit, the event would have been very different from the perspective of someone watching a distant video. The pilots would have been focused on instruments, runway alignment, and aircraft response rather than on how dramatic the aircraft looked from outside. Their attention would have been directed toward controlling the machine and completing the landing safely. This is why aviation videos should be interpreted carefully. Visual drama does not always reveal the full operational situation. A movement that looks enormous from the ground may be part of a correction that is manageable from the cockpit, while a subtle problem may be much more serious than it appears on camera. Only flight data and investigation can provide the complete picture. The same principle applies to determining the cause. It is tempting to watch a hard landing and immediately blame the pilot, the wind, or the aircraft. But aviation incidents are rarely that simple. There can be multiple contributing factors. Wind may influence the approach, aircraft speed may affect touchdown energy, runway alignment may change during the final seconds, and human decisions may interact with environmental conditions. Investigators examine all of these factors rather than focusing on one visible moment. This approach has helped aviation become safer over decades. When something goes wrong, the industry studies it, identifies contributing factors, and looks for ways to prevent similar events. That could mean changes in training, operating procedures, weather information, aircraft systems, or airport practices. Even an event that ends without serious injury can provide valuable information. The dramatic Ethiopian cargo landing also reminds us that a safe flight does not always mean a perfectly smooth flight. Aviation is an environment where unexpected situations can occur, and safety depends partly on how effectively those situations are managed. The goal is not to guarantee that nothing unexpected will ever happen. Instead, the goal is to ensure that when something does happen, the aircraft, crew, and operational system have enough protection and capability to manage it. In this case, the hard touchdown was unexpected and visually alarming, but the aircraft stayed within the runway environment and the crew regained control. That outcome is significant. It means the situation did not progress to the worst possible result. The video also demonstrates why pilots are trained to prioritize aircraft control above everything else. When a landing becomes unstable, the first priority is to fly and control the aircraft. Once the aircraft is stable, the crew can assess what happened and complete the remaining procedures. This principle is fundamental throughout aviation. Whether dealing with a technical problem, weather issue, or unexpected aircraft movement, maintaining control is always essential. The Boeing 777 itself also represents decades of aviation engineering. Its systems are designed to provide pilots with multiple tools for managing the aircraft during flight and landing. But technology does not remove the need for human judgment. Pilots must understand what the aircraft is doing and select the appropriate response. Automation can assist with many tasks, but the crew remains responsible for monitoring the aircraft and making decisions. Difficult landings can therefore test both the aircraft's capabilities and the crew's ability to manage those capabilities. Watching the Ethiopian cargo footage today, it is easy to focus on the dramatic bounce and roll. But the deeper lesson is the importance of preparation. The flight crew had completed a long international journey and then faced one of the most demanding moments of the flight during the final seconds. The aircraft's approach, touchdown, and recovery all happened rapidly. The crew had to remain focused despite the sudden change. Their ability to stabilize the aircraft prevented the event from escalating. This is why professional pilot training places such a strong emphasis on abnormal situations. A pilot cannot know exactly what will happen during every future flight, but training can prepare them for categories of problems. They learn to recognize unstable approaches, maintain aircraft control, communicate effectively, and make decisions under pressure. Simulator sessions can reproduce difficult wind conditions and abnormal landing scenarios, allowing crews to practice responses repeatedly. When a real event occurs, the experience of that training becomes valuable. It is impossible to know from the video exactly which procedures the crew used during the Ethiopian cargo landing, and it would be inappropriate to invent cockpit actions that cannot be verified. But the successful outcome clearly shows that the aircraft was brought back under control. That is the fact that matters most. The event also highlights why the final approach is carefully monitored. Before landing, pilots receive weather information, review the runway, and calculate performance. They consider wind direction and speed, visibility, runway length, and aircraft weight. If conditions are outside acceptable limits, they can change the plan. If the approach becomes unstable, they can go around. These options are built into normal operating procedures. A pilot choosing to go around is not admitting failure. It is often a sign of good judgment because the safest landing is sometimes the landing that is delayed. The Ethiopian aircraft, however, had already reached the runway, so the crew had to manage the aircraft's movement after touchdown. The video shows how important those final corrections can be. A few seconds of instability can feel like a lifetime when a large aircraft is traveling quickly across a runway. For viewers, the visual impression is one of sudden danger. For the crew, it is a situation requiring immediate concentration and precise control. The difference between those perspectives is important. The public sees the dramatic movement, while the flight crew sees a collection of aircraft parameters, runway references, and control responses. That is why expert analysis is valuable when studying aviation footage. Without that analysis, it is easy to misunderstand what is happening. The incident also raises an interesting point about how aviation content becomes viral. A short video with a dramatic landing can attract millions of views because it creates an immediate emotional reaction. People see the aircraft bounce and roll and naturally wonder whether it will crash. The tension is resolved when the aircraft remains on the runway, creating a powerful beginning, middle, and ending within. Virality can also create misinformation if the original date or details are removed. Some posts may describe an old incident as breaking news, while others may exaggerate the danger. A responsible video script should give viewers the basic facts and avoid claims that cannot be verified. That is especially important when discussing aviation because a dramatic headline can easily create a false impression about an airline, aircraft, or pilot. The Ethiopian cargo Boeing 777 incident deserves attention because of what is visible, not because it needs exaggeration. Bouncing and rolling movement was clearly unusual. Recovery was clearly important. Those facts are enough to make the story compelling. There is no need to claim that the aircraft was definitely seconds away from crashing or that a particular person caused the event unless reliable evidence supports such a statement. The date, April 11, 2021, should also be included whenever the footage is presented so viewers understand that they are watching a past event. The location, Miami International Airport, provides additional context because the airport is a major international gateway and an important center for cargo operations. Ethiopian cargo flight 3509 was traveling from Santiago de Chile, meaning the aircraft had already completed a significant portion of its journey before encountering difficulty during the landing. That contrast makes the event even more interesting. The flight can be routine for hours and then become challenging during the final minutes. It is a reminder that every phase of flight deserves attention, even when the destination is already in sight. The final stage can be particularly demanding because there is less altitude available to recover from problems. When an aircraft is thousands of feet above the ground, pilots have time to diagnose many issues and select a response. During landing, that time disappears rapidly. The runway is approaching, the aircraft is descending and speed must be managed precisely. If something unexpected happens, the response has to be immediate. This is why aviation professionals often describe takeoff and landing as critical phases of flight. The Ethiopian cargo landing is a clear visual example of that principle. The aircraft was almost finished with its journey, yet the final moments became the most challenging. Fortunately, the aircraft remained on the runway. The event may have looked chaotic, but the outcome was controlled. That distinction is important. A dramatic landing is not necessarily a disaster. It can be an incident that is managed successfully. The crew's ability to keep the aircraft within the runway boundaries is therefore a central part of the story. The aircraft's large size also makes the footage visually powerful. The wings, fuselage and landing gear all move noticeably as the aircraft responds to the forces acting on aircraft rolls. The movement is easy to see because of its enormous dimensions. A small aircraft experiencing the same relative movement might not look as dramatic on camera. With a Boeing 777, every movement becomes visually significant. This is one reason why large aircraft landing videos attract so much attention online. Viewers are seeing a machine weighing many tons respond to changing forces in real time. The incident also offers an opportunity to appreciate the complexity of aircraft design. A Boeing 777 is equipped with multiple systems that help pilots control the aircraft throughout the flight. The landing gear is engineered to absorb touchdown forces. Flight controls allow pilots to adjust attitude and direction, and braking systems help slow the aircraft after it reaches the runway. These systems are supported by maintenance programs designed to detect wear or damage before it becomes a safety problem. Aviation safety therefore begins long before the aircraft reaches the runway. It starts with design, manufacturing, maintenance, training, weather forecasting, flight planning and operational procedures. The landing is simply the final visible part of that much larger system. When something unusual happens, the system must respond. The Ethiopian cargo event shows how that response can prevent a difficult landing from becoming a serious accident. Another point worth remembering is that aircraft are not expected to land perfectly every time. Real-world conditions are variable. Pilots aim for safe, controlled touchdowns, but wind gusts and other environmental factors can create sudden changes. A landing that begins normally can become difficult within seconds. That does not necessarily mean the crew failed. What matters is how they respond to the changing conditions. The successful recovery of Flight 3509 is therefore an important part of the story. The aircraft did not leave the runway, and the crew maintained control until the landing was completed. If you watch the video carefully, the most striking moment is not only the hard impact but the transition afterward. The aircraft moves unpredictably, yet it does not continue into an uncontrolled departure from the runway. That moment demonstrates why aircraft control is the foundation of flight safety. No matter what else is happening, the crew must keep the aircraft under control. The same principle applies during takeoff, cruise, approach, and landing. If control is maintained, there is often an opportunity to solve the underlying problem. If control is lost, the situation can deteriorate rapidly. The Ethiopian cargo footage is therefore a powerful example of a difficult situation that was contained. It is a reminder that aviation is not about avoiding every unexpected event. It is about creating enough training, technology, procedures, and experience to manage unexpected events safely. The exact timestamp of the landing within an online video depends on the specific upload, so viewers should not assume that every version begins at the same point. Some videos may start several seconds before touchdown, while others may cut directly to the dramatic moment. If you are preparing a narration for a specific video, the safest approach is to match the narration to the actual footage being used rather than inserting an unverified timestamp. Approach, touchdown, bounce, rolling movement, recovery and continued runway control. This sequence provides a natural structure for a video because it begins with a normal approach, builds tension at touchdown and ends with relief when the aircraft is stabilized. The date and location provide context, while the aviation explanation helps viewers understand why the movement was so. The final message is simple: a landing can change in seconds, and when it does, the ability of a trained crew to maintain control becomes critical. On April 11, 2021, Ethiopian cargo flight 3509 arrived at Miami International Airport after flying from Santiago de Chile. The Boeing 777 freighter approached the runway, touched down hard and experienced a dramatic bounce and rolling movement. For a moment, the aircraft looked unstable, but the crew managed to recover control and keep the aircraft on the runway. The event remains memorable because the video captures that frightening transition from a routine approach to a challenging landing in a matter of seconds. It also shows why pilots train for abnormal situations, why aircraft undergo inspections after hard landings, and why aviation incidents must be discussed using verified information rather than assumptions. The footage may look like a disaster waiting to happen, but the final outcome is what matters. The aircraft remained on the runway and the situation was brought under control. Behind those few dramatic seconds are years of pilot training, aircraft engineering, maintenance standards, and safety procedures. That is the real story behind the Ethiopian cargo Boeing 777 landing, and it is a powerful reminder that in aviation, the most important skill is not simply flying an aircraft under normal conditions, but maintaining control when something unexpected happens.